The world of mobula rays transcends the barriers between oceans, the borders between shallow seas and cold ocean depths, and even the ocean's ultimate barrier, the one between sea and sky. Found in tropical and temperate seas around the world, the genus Mobula contains some of the most incredible organisms that have ever graced this planet. There are over 600 species of ray in the ocean, but only 11 different species of mobula ray, all of which have a distinct diamond-shaped appearance with wings that allow them to glide through the water and put on stunning displays of elegance and agility. Some are small and congregate in incredible numbers, occasionally flying out of the water in acrobatic leaps. Others are absolutely enormous, so enormous that their elegance appears to defy gravity. The giant oceanic manta ray is the largest species of ray in the world, with wingspans that can reach over 8 meters. Their sheer size makes them a striking presence in the ocean, captivating researchers and divers who are lucky enough to encounter them. But more than just being huge, they're also gregarious, and often as curious about human swimmers as the swimmers are of them. And this is because the giant oceanic manta ray is incredibly intelligent. Manta rays have the largest brains of all fish, with a brain-to-body ratio that exceeds that of the enormous whale shark. And it turns out, giant manta rays are much more mysterious than scientists even realized. Until very recently, we didn't even know how to categorize them. Until 2018, scientists listed giant manta rays and reef manta rays under the genus Manta. But more analysis of their morphology and genetics resulted in scientists placing them in the Mobula genus, along with smaller devil rays. And now, scientists are learning that the giant oceanic manta ray isn't the animal they once thought it was. It's not simply a shallow water plankton eater, but a deep-sea renegade, with movement so efficient that teams of roboticists around the world are working to emulate it. And not only does it dive deeper than we ever thought, and move more efficiently than we ever thought, to the shock of the science world, giant manta rays have been observed to rapidly change the color and pattern of their skin, something that's basically unheard of in the world of elasmobranchs. The giant ocean manta is big, intelligent, and still absolutely full of mysteries. Why did the giant ocean manta ray evolve to become so enormous? And how does an enormous body move so efficiently? What are they doing when they dive to the cold, dark depths? And what does it mean when they change their color? As the giant oceanic manta ray glides through the water, it flaps its massive pectoral fins, giving the appearance that it's flying. When rays diverged from sharks around 200 million years ago, the pectoral fins expanded into what we now call the ray disc. And for the giant oceanic manta ray, this expansion was extreme. Their wingspan can reach over 8 meters across, and their pectoral fins make up around 85% of their body length. For sharks of a similar size, their pectoral fins make up just 10 to 15% of their body length. But what benefit do such massive wings give versus the more typical sharkish body plan? A hint emerges by observing the behavior of the giant manta ray compared to the similarly sized great white shark. The great white shark is a powerful, fast swimmer, but its bursts of speed usually only happen in one direction. It's hard for a great white shark to turn on a dime. Compare this to the giant manta ray. It's often seen swimming in tight, acrobatic circles, circling back to eat clusters of plankton or to evade predators. Its maneuverability and agility are almost unheard of in such large animals, and it's thanks to the giant manta ray's large and flexible wings. While the overall shape of a manta wing is similar to the wings of birds, these fins can undulate and bend in many more ways than bird wings can. The manta ray has numerous support structures inside the pectoral fin, and these structures can all be controlled separately. But as useful as maneuverability is for evading predators, it comes at a cost. Maneuverability is simply controlled instability. And without stability, an animal can't move steadily and efficiently along a predictable path. Luckily, the giant oceanic manta ray strikes a balance between these opposing qualities and is maneuverable while also maintaining stability and efficiency. One way the giant manta ray maintains stability is by having wings with a fairly high aspect ratio. During flight, in the sea or in the sky, longer, narrower wings give a plane or manta ray more stability. It's sort of like a tightrope walker who holds a long pole as they walk. The extra length helps balance the body. Manta ray wings aren't exactly long and skinny like glider wings, but their length does help balance the animal while gliding. High aspect ratio wings also help generate lift efficiently. And the way the giant manta moves its pectoral fins also allows its swimming to be highly efficient, and sometimes surprisingly fast. On average, giant manta rays swim about 9 miles per hour or 14.5 kilometers per hour. But to evade danger, they can sprint as fast as 22 miles per hour or 35.5 kilometers per hour. To reach these speeds, they combine fin oscillations with undulations. Oscillations are the flapping of the wing up and down, which generates large propulsive and lift forces. But at the same time that the wing is oscillating up and down, it's also undulating, sending a traveling wave outwards from its body towards its flexible wing tips. As giant rays flap in this manner, their fins disturb the water and create vortices, which push against the surrounding water and propels the animal forward. And these two types of motion make the giant manta ray an extremely efficient swimmer. Scientists have measured the propulsive efficiency to be 89%. To understand more about the biology of manta rays, I talked with Jessica Pate, founder of the Florida Manta Project and research scientist at the Marine Megafauna Foundation.
Basically, manta rays have to keep swimming in order to breathe. So they are designed to swim. You'll never see one resting on the bottom. So they're just designed very hydrodynamically efficient. They have like this more pointy diamond-shaped body structure where normally like a stingray that lives on the bottom is going to be just more like round. So they can get a lot more power out of their wingtips.
It's so powerful and efficient that researchers are designing underwater autonomous vehicles modeled after giant manta rays. They hope that these bio-inspired machines will be able to help map the sea floor, perform search and rescue missions, and inspect underwater technology far more nimbly and efficiently than current systems. Based on their pancake-like shape and flapping wings, you might assume that mobulas are a bigger version of stingrays. It's true that all of them belong to the elasmobranch subclass of cartilaginous fish, as do sharks and skates. But there are some significant differences between mobulas and stingrays. Mobulas have mouths on the front of their bodies rather than underneath. They also have cephalic lobes, which are two fin-like appendages around their mouths. Unlike the anterior part of most stingrays, these cephalic lobes do not have any electrosensory abilities. Rather, they're there to help funnel water and plankton straight into their mouths. The cephalic lobes make mobula rays the only vertebrate with 6 paired appendages rather than 4, 2 by their mouth, 2 pectoral fins that act as their wings, and 2 pelvic fins at the back. And while stingrays have long stingers, in most mobulus species, including the giant manta rays, their tails have lost their ability to sting. And sometimes people don't realize this. But one of their other differences is something you can't see unless you get up close and personal with either of these animals, and that's their teeth. Stingrays have crushing teeth plates that help them feed on crustaceans and fish. Mobula rays, on the other hand, only have teeth on their lower jaw, and these are small, peg-shaped, uneven teeth, pretty useless for chewing. Today, they're only used for mating, when males latch on to females. Instead of crushing their prey, manta rays are filter feeders. When plankton is abundant, they open their mouths and swim through it. There's no sucking in. Everything in their path just travels into the large oral cavity and passes through their gill rakers. Manta rays are like giant flying colanders, filtering out the tasty bits. This transition from grinding teeth to filter feeding dates back to sometime before 50 million years ago in the fossil record, perhaps after the extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, when other ocean-dwelling planktivores disappeared, opening up a large environmental niche. There was also a geologic event called the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum about 55 million years ago, in which global temperatures increased from 5 to 8 degrees Celsius, leading to a boom in plankton growth. Whatever the reason, manta rays became voracious plankton eaters. And because of this, something else remarkable occurred. Manta rays became giants. But how is it that a diet of tiny plankton pushed these creatures to become so big? Researchers have found that gigantism isn't limited by the trophic level, aka which type of food an animal is eating, but rather by the quality and abundance of that food and the animal's ability to exploit it. There's a biological theory about this concept called Cope's rule. It hypothesizes that evolutionary lineages tend to increase in size over time, because being larger improves survival. For apex carnivores, this is only true up to a point. There's not much point in being larger than a size where you have no enemies and can prey on anything you want. But for plankton eaters, being bigger is almost always better. Being massive gives them an increased foraging range, since greater swimming efficiency enables traveling farther in search of plankton. And greater energy storage enables traveling farther between patches of rich feeding grounds. A larger mouth and increased surface area also allows them to process much more water and gather much more plankton. And perhaps the biggest advantage of being so large is that you're less likely to be eaten.
When manta rays are full-grown adults, they have very, very few predators. Really, it's only orcas. There was actually a recent orca predation in Hawaii on a manta ray, or large sharks. In Mozambique, one of our study sites, they have a very healthy bull shark population, and like 75 to 80% of their mantas have shark bites, but they're surviving because they're just taking little chunks out of the back.
However, history has shown us that large animals are more at risk of extinction, because large organisms are often more vulnerable to environmental crises due to their need for more resources like food, as well as their long reproductive phases. Organisms that reproduce in the span of a few weeks are much more likely to undergo rapid evolution than something like a manta ray, in which pregnancies last a full year and females only give birth every few years.
Their overall life history strategy is more similar to, say, an elephant than another kind of fish, because they grow really big, but they reproduce really slowly. So generally, when you have that kind of strategy, you're surviving, you have higher survivorship because you have to, because you're putting basically all your eggs in this one reproductive basket.
But for the giant manta ray, being gigantic and eating lots of plankton has so far been worth the risk. And for a long time, we thought shallow water plankton was all they were eating. We'd see them swirling around shallow coastal waters, mouth open, catching plankton, and we thought that was the end of the story. But it turns out manta rays aren't just inhabitants of the sunny shallows. They, in fact, dive deep, sometimes really deep, all the way down to the ocean midnight zone. For decades, scientists have struggled to fully understand the lives of giant manta rays because they're simply hard to track down. They're known to travel huge distances, and when scientists are lucky enough to spot one, it's usually from a boat in shallow water. Thus, for a long time, all the data surrounding giant mantas came from observations in only this environment. But as time went on, some researchers had a hunch that there was more to manta ray behavior than they were seeing. To gain more insight, they traveled to Ecuador, where the largest number of giant manta rays are known to congregate. Here they collected small muscle samples from the rays, as well as samples of plankton. They wanted to find evidence in the rays' bodies that their diet was made up of entirely shallow water plankton. To do this, they compared the nitrogen and carbon isotopes in both the plankton and the manta ray muscle tissue. Nitrogen isotopes in particular are very useful because they can tell us about what marine organisms have been eating, because the ratio of nitrogen increases with each step up the food web. In other words, top predators like sharks and tuna will have a much higher nitrogen ratio than something like plankton, which eat algae. And carbon isotopes are useful in telling us the origin of food sources. For example, surface plankton and mesopelagic plankton have different levels of carbon-13. What the researchers found in the case of the giant manta rays was that their chemical signature wasn't correlated to surface plankton. It looked much more like they were eating food from the mesopelagic, a much deeper layer of the ocean. Later, scientists put satellite tags on the manta rays and found that they were diving to depths of 1,400 meters. Another group of researchers tagged manta rays off the coast of Peru to see what their movements would be like throughout the day, and found that 3 of the rays dove much deeper at night than during the day. It's possible that they stayed closer to the surface in the daytime as a way of warming up, since they're ectothermic, meaning they can't produce much of their own body heat and rely on the surrounding temperature to keep them warm. But the deep dives aren't the only unexpected movements these oceanic manta rays are making. It also seems like they're moving around their habitats in different ways than we once thought. For a long time, giant ocean manta rays were believed to be intrepid travelers, migrating huge distances to get from one feeding ground to another. And that probably is the case with some manta rays. One survey that stretched over 4 years and relied on citizen scientists along the east coast of the US collected more than 5,000 sightings of giant manta rays and saw them moving hundreds of miles up and down the coast depending on water temperature.
They can make really long distance migrations. Our team just published a paper where they tracked a manta going 1,000 kilometers. So that's a pretty long distance migration, but maybe not like the white shark who swam from South Africa to Australia. It's not something crazy like that. But a couple of years ago, a manta ray showed up in Cocos Island, it's kind of out in the middle of the ocean off the coast of Costa Rica. But it was a reef manta ray, which reef manta rays are not known to the eastern tropical Pacific. And the closest place it could have come from is like Hawaii, which is thousands of miles away.
But other researchers looking at giant manta rays around Mexico and Indonesia found that the rays didn't swim more than 150 miles from where they first were tagged. They stuck much more closely to their own neighborhood than researchers expected. They also ate a diet that was very specific to their region, so their non-migration could be due to the abundance of food in those particular locations. Finding and studying these more sedentary populations could open up a new chapter in manta ray research. And we clearly still have a lot to learn about them, including something that seems fundamental. Can these mysterious creatures change the color of their skin? And if so, how did we only just find out about this spectacular ability? Manta rays are typically described as having one main type of coloration called the chevron, which is a dark navy or black shade over most of their dorsal side, with 2 white triangular patches across their head. Their ventral side, or belly, is largely white in color, with different patterns and patches of black. But when observing captive individuals, researchers were surprised to see the coloration of the giant manta rays rapidly change. The skin around their eyes, mouths, the inside of their cephalic lobes, and the chevron shapes on their backs all rapidly lightened or darkened when the individuals were having intense social interactions or just before they were fed.
This is something our team is actually looking into. We were always a little bit skeptical about it because we had never seen it. And just with the way we do our research, like I said, it's quite different than everyone else. So we usually are looking with a drone in the sky. And while you can't necessarily tell who is who based on their dorsal coloration, like usually from the drone, I can tell like, that was the first one, that was the second one, that's the third one, just because they look slightly different. And I look at hundreds of mantas all the time. But one day I was like, oh, this is a new manta. And we got in and it was the same manta from 2 hours before, but it looked dramatically different.
All the color changing was reversed fairly quickly, but researchers really don't know how or why the giant manta rays put on such a show. We do know that they have good visual abilities and large brains, so maybe the color changes have to do with social behaviors. And this ability isn't just limited to the giant ocean manta ray, the smaller reef manta has been observed to change colors too. It's a tantalizing hint that these mantas are more complex than we might give them credit for. Another piece of evidence that suggests the extent of their intelligence is the mirror self-recognition test. This experiment is generally thought to be one of the most reliable ways to gauge an animal's self-awareness or self-recognition. For land animals like chimpanzees, it's easy enough to put some kind of marking on the animal that they can't see without the aid of a mirror. If they notice the mark on themselves in the mirror and respond to it, that suggests they're aware the image in the mirror is their own body. While researchers couldn't easily place a marking on manta rays, the mantas did significantly more repetitive movements in front of a mirror than in control conditions. Their cephalic fin movements also increased, almost like they were making faces at themselves. It's not quite possible to say whether they passed the mirror test, but the results are intriguing nonetheless. And while it is difficult to quantify the intelligence of any animal, especially the giant manta ray, we do know that they have the biggest brain of any fish. And in the mobula genus, the telencephalon is the largest part of the brain, accounting for 61% of the total mass. This is also the area of the brain associated with memory, learning, complex social behavior, and higher sensory processing.
And they don't just have like a big brain because they're a giant animal. They have like a big brain for their body size. So we think that manta rays are likely pretty intelligent, probably because they're very social creatures. And, many divers or people who've been in the water with them, they're always like, I get this feeling that the manta was looking at me. Or we have experiences when they're entangled in fishing line and they just kind of stop swimming and let you just remove it all and then swim off. And really, they have like these complex lives and are really intelligent. They're more similar to, sometimes I say, like a dolphin than to like a normal fish.
There are so many characteristics of giant manta rays that make them unique. Their brains, their behavior, their bodies, the list goes on. But many aspects of their lifestyle also make them increasingly vulnerable to extinction. In 2018, the giant manta ray was listed as threatened under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. Because they feed on plankton, they're also more likely to ingest large quantities of microplastics, and we just don't know what that might do to the health of animals that live more than 40 years. They're also exceptionally vulnerable to almost every kind of fishing, and in shallow water habitats, they're often hit by boats speeding by above them. People also falsely believe manta gill plates give those who eat them health and vitality, so they're killed in huge numbers specifically for that one single body part. But researchers are doing their best to understand manta ray behaviors in order to protect them, whether that's creating locations that have special designations as nurseries or monitoring their movement from the mesopelagic back up to shallow waters. The more we learn, the better we're able to make sure our activities don't interfere with theirs, and the more chances we'll have to go out in the water and see them gliding by. As this year comes to a close, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for watching and allowing me and everyone who works with me on this channel to keep bringing you more and more videos about the subjects we care so much about. It is literally a dream come true. Your support, watching, sharing, and liking videos, and signing up to our sponsors keeps the channel alive and thriving. And now there's a brand new project that I'm creating, a 5-part docu-game show called Archaeology Quest that I produced and starred in with my co-writer and friend Lorraine. This is probably the biggest project I've ever been a part of. It's a mix between serious archaeology education and then our absolutely ridiculous attempts to take what we've learned about ancient technology and put it to the test in a series of competitions against one another. With the ultimate question, who will succeed in creating a meal using only Paleolithic technology? This will only be available on Nebula, and it's coming soon. Last year, I know that thousands of you signed up for what we call the bundle deal, to get access to CuriosityStream and Nebula for one price at the same time. But we have a big update for anyone who got in on that bundle deal. CuriosityStream has informed us, and even included in their latest SEC filings, that they don't intend to pay us for any bundle revenue in 2024, even for the accounts that still have access. If you purchased a bundle subscription or renewed in 2023, you will still get access to Nebula until the end of your 12-month subscription. But unfortunately, going forward, none of the money will go to Nebula, and therefore it won't go to the creators you likely signed up to support. We know we're not happy about this either. If you're a bundle user and still want to support this channel by being a Nebula subscriber in 2024, the only way to make sure your money goes to supporting us and Nebula is by signing up directly. For bundle subscribers, if you switch to a direct Nebula subscription, you'll sign up and pay today, but we won't start the clock until your bundle access expires. And for existing Nebula subscribers and new subscribers alike, this holiday season, Nebula is offering lifetime memberships. For $300, you'll get Nebula for as long as both you and Nebula exist. This is a way for us to raise capital for the amazing creator-owned projects Nebula is on a roll with greenlighting. Things like Archaeology Quest, the new docu-game show that I mentioned earlier that was only possible thanks to your support on Nebula. So if you sign up using the link below, you can support this channel directly and get both Nebula and Nebula classes for 40% off annual plans, a little over $2.50 per month. Or you can sign up to a lifetime plan for $300, ensuring you get access to every piece of content the creators on Nebula will ever make, while also helping to fund new and exciting projects. And as we're approaching the holiday rush, it's good to know that the lifetime plans on Nebula can be purchased as a gift for someone else in the form of a gift card. It's the perfect gift for Nebula fans and content consumers of all types, and the only place where you'll be able to watch Archaeology Quest. Check out nebula.tv/realscience to sign up now.